That's from the album Fragile by Black and White Boy, a.k.a. Mr. Andy Nicol. Andy, welcome to Urban Beat FM.
Oh, hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, I was telling you a story how last night I decided I better check Andy's music out. Yeah. And I went on and I checked out the album and I was most impressed. So I've been listening to the album again today. I've had it on the car, I've had it on the iTunes, and I've got to say, Fragile, you must be very proud of it, Andy.
Yeah, I'm delighted with how it turned out. I think I was surprised myself at how well it turned out, and you know, I'm not someone who's horrendously down on myself, and like, you know, I didn't expect it to be rubbish, but I didn't expect the amount of good feedback that I've had about it by people who didn't have to like it, who didn't have to say good things about it, people that don't know me, reviewers, people in radio and things, and to get really good feedback from these people who are impartial was
phenomenal.
Really cool. It's really cool, yeah, quite overwhelming at times.
I mean, Andy, we'll talk about the album a wee bit later, but Andy, I mean, going back, I mean, how long have you actually been making music?
I suppose it depends what you mean by making music. I've played the guitar since I was about 16, and I only picked it up because my brother could do it and I couldn't, and I hated that. So a bit of sibling rivalry. So I picked up the guitar when I was 16, but I was terrible at writing songs up until I really only started writing songs properly around about maybe 2006, and even then they were terrible, and they didn't start to kind of become decent until about 2008, 2009 maybe, and then I started to think, I started doing some radio stuff and getting in contact with other bands, and I'd always really wanted to write songs and be a performer and stuff, and it kind of gave me that little bit of, you know, kick in the behind to get on with it and be better and challenge myself more.
But you were still, even though that you said you thought the songs were rubbish, you were still persevering to get that craft correct. So you were. Yeah,
I think I said to someone quite recently about this, about like I had the choice of just putting the guitar down and just not bothering to write, or just working really hard and getting better at it. And I suppose the first option was never really going to happen, because I enjoyed it too much. Even if the songs weren't brilliant, I still enjoyed that therapy of sitting down and putting my thoughts on paper. And I'm glad I stuck with it, because I think what's happened is that, you know, I've you know, produced something pretty good.
And I think you have as well. I mean, we were talking about writing songs there. I mean, does it come easy to you? I mean, how long does it actually take you to write a song?
There isn't really a formula or, you know, a sort of set schedule for writing a song for me, because some songs were written really quickly, particularly on the album, songs like Hide, Breaking Down. These songs were written really quickly over a couple of days, but then other songs took quite a while to form. They tended to be the songs where I was really trying to say something, and I had to shape the words a little bit more. But yeah, it varies. I don't find songwriting especially easy, but at the same time I don't find it heart-wrenchingly difficult. I just sort of, sometimes it's good and sometimes it flows and other times it doesn't. I don't get too stressed about it anymore. Sometimes people say that the longer it takes you to write the song, the better the song will be. Is that something you would subscribe to? Well, no, I don't think I would, because I would say that the strongest song on the album is probably Hide, and it was written in like a day or two. And you know, words, music, everything, I didn't really change it at all from there, and I think it's probably the strongest song on the album, both musically and lyrically. A little naive perhaps, but you know, it's pretty strong. And then, you know, there's other examples of, you know, one of my favourite songwriters, Neil Finn. You know,
Crowded House.
He wrote "Don't Dream It's Over" in one sitting. He wrote "Better Be Home Soon" in one sitting. I mean, I don't think that the longer you spend on it, I think actually I would say, as a rule, the longer you spend on it, the worse it's going to be.
Yeah,
it becomes
probably.
It becomes too
you
thought out.
You overthink it.
It becomes too thought out. It becomes too contrived.
Yeah.
It becomes too obvious.
That's very true. Yeah. Anyway, Andy, you're here. You're going to do a few songs for us over the course of the next wee while. I mean, first song, what have you got for us?
Well, I was just talking about it. I'm going to do Hide.
Yeah, oh, great.
I'm going to do a stripped back acoustic version of it.
Yeah. Anyway, from Irvine Beat FM, in session, Black and White Boy, and this is Hide. Andy Nicol, a.k.a. Black and White Boy. Andy, great stripped back version of Hide there. I mean, listening to the album has that acoustic-y feel, but you've got electric guitars, you get backing singers on, but it doesn't take away from the acoustic feel of the songs.
There's an acoustic guitar in every song.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted that to be the sort of the bed of the album, that there was going to be acoustic guitar, bass and drums, and for the majority of the songs that would be the basses. I am a solo singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
I play most of the time, I play on my own, so and although there's a lot more going on in the album, I wanted there to be an acoustic element to it all the way through.
Let's talk about influences, Andy. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, if you're listening to, at home, listening to some music, I mean, what would you listen to?
Typically, I mentioned earlier about Neil Finn, so I listen to a lot of Crowded House, Neil Finn solo work, bit of Split Ends now and again. But beyond that, I listen to a lot of Ryan Adams, who was a major influence in the album. I listen to a bit of Motown. I like Noel Gallagher, Stone Roses, Tom McRae, Jeff Buckley.
Yeah, Jeff Buckley, yeah.
So there's a lot of singer-songwriters in there. But I think it depends on the season. It depends on my mood.
Yeah.
So once summer comes in, that's when Motown gets cracked open, or maybe a bit of Kula Shaker or a bit of Delays. Yep. And I start to get in more kind of sunshiny mood.
Yeah.
But once December hits, it's time to crack open Grace by Jeff Buckley, big style.
I'm going through the kind of Leonard Cohen phase just now.
Okay, yeah.
I've been listening to the Live at London album.
Okay.
It's very good. I admire the guy as a singer-songwriter. Do you manage to get to many gigs?
I do, yeah. I try and get out sort of once every couple of weeks at least. They don't tend to be big gigs because broke musician, can't really afford to go out to big gigs all that often, but I'm very fortunate in that I've got a lot of musician friends, and majority of who contributed to the album in one way or another, and so I try and get out and see them as often as I can, and I do try and check out gigs as frequently as I can, and I go to a lot of bars in Glasgow where there's music on, so sometimes you just kind of stumble upon it.
I like the way you say that, like, you've got a lot of musician friends. Do you find that when you're all together, you kind of feed off the energy of each other?
Yeah, to an extent. I think there's though maybe none of us would ever admit it, there's that time where you hear someone play a song and you go, I wish I'd written that song.
I know, yeah. Every musician says that, Andy.
How did they think of that? Why did I not think of that first? And it sounds so obvious. You go, it's so obvious.
But in the same respect, they're probably listening to some of your songs and they're probably saying, damn, why did he write that? Why did I not write that?
I know. None of them are telling me that, though.
But these are things you keep to yourself.
You keep to yourself.
I mean, have you been gigging yourself recently? Yeah.
Well, we had the album launch.
Yeah.
We did that at the Glad Cafe in the south side of Glasgow, which is only been open a year, but it's a fantastic little venue.
It's getting a great reputation as a good venue.
So many good acts have played there, and I discussed the album launch with a friend of mine on the south side who runs a lot of gigs, a guy called Crawford Smith, and he does a collective called the Southside Sessions.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, so where should we do it? And he basically said, it's got to be the Glad Cafe.
Yeah.
You put it in the Glad Cafe, it'll be busy. Simple as.
That's good.
and it was full. I was really delighted with how it turned out, and we played pretty well given the fact that we only had a couple of practices. There was a couple of ropey moments, but we powered through it, and I think generally speaking everyone enjoyed it. So that was the last gig that I played. Other than that, I've been doing some radio stuff, and I'm playing this Saturday at Pivo supporting Josh Harty, along with Matt Scott and A Letter From My Lover, who I saw just on Monday night there at Sleazy's at the open mic night, and three-way harmonies, three very attractive females doing three-way harmonies
with harmonies to match.
Absolutely, voices as beautiful as themselves, and so I'm looking forward to even more now.
So there you go. If you're in Glasgow on Saturday night, head to Pivo. Sounds like a good night. Anyway, Andy, another song. What do you fancy doing for us now?
Another song. Well, I'll play. I like playing this one.
That's the first track. If you get the album Fragile, that's the first track. I love the old phrase from vinyl days, side one, track one. So vinyl seems to be making a big resurgence now.
It is, yeah. I know a lot of people who, particularly in sort of more alternative circles, who either listen to or perform like kind of hardcore or really sort of extreme forms of music, and where vinyl is just pretty much it now. It's what you buy. I mean, you download it and you buy the vinyl, and that's kind of
a lot of artists are taking that route, whether they're looking at it as a novelty value, but they're actually issuing it on CD, you get download, but putting it out on vinyl, and it's a good thing. I mean, a lot of people still have turntables.
Yeah, and again, it's something that's making a bit of a resurgence. I think that around about Glasgow, the charity shops have been decimated of vinyl. Everyone's been in.
I mean, you go to Byers Road and you've got the Oxfam, and the shop's just full of vinyl.
Yeah.
Now their music shop.
Yeah, I mean, I
phenomenal.
I don't own a turntable myself, sadly. So I'm still stuck in the 90s and CDs. Very much the 90s child.
Right, let's go back to the album. I mean, at what point do you say to yourself, right, it's studio time, let's go and record the album? Do you have to have a whole bank of songs to choose from?
It's more about having a whole bank of money.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from there.
To be honest, I released it on my own label, which essentially means I released it myself. Though I do have people that help me out with the promotion side of things, but the financial side of it was down to me. And $1.50 later, you've got an album. But I don't regret it.
Oh no!
In terms of having enough material, I suppose the album had been written over the period of 4 years, and so there was plenty of material there.
How do you go about selecting that though, Andy? I mean, it must be hard. You must have songs that you've written 4 years ago, and you have songs that you've written recently before the album launch. I mean, it must be hard, like going back, looking over songs that you've maybe got sitting for a few years.
It is, but I think that the songs that were written 4 years ago, namely Out on My Own, Breaking Down and Hide, and I was comfortable playing those songs live. I was still happy with them, and so they'd sort of, for me, they stood the test of time with me. I still enjoyed playing them, and so that to me was enough. But I suppose for me, we recorded about 16 songs in the studio, and I had this idea of releasing like a sort of double album, and then someone kind of pointed out it's too ambitious as a first album. It would be a little bit self-indulgent, and it also, when I listened to the songs, there would have been 5 songs that would have stuck out like a sore thumb. They just didn't fit the theme of the album, and I decided to shape the album around a theme and a tone. There isn't a happy song on the album. There's no happy-go-lucky tracks in there. It is very somber, but it's about a particularly tough period of my life.
It's a fragile album.
Fragile is in one hand is a joke between myself and a friend, and you'll notice that I've got fragile.
Yes, I see that. I did notice that.
I've got fragile tape stuck onto my guitar, and it's a bit of a joke between a friend back in Stirling and myself, but it also represented that, you know, I was going through a bereavement. I'd gone through a significant I'd gone through a significant breakup, and there was a lot of changes happening in my life, and I hate change. I'm not good with it. And so, you know, and I do also struggle with anxiety, and I do have quite fragile mental health at times, and so it was there to, you know, be quite open and honest about it. I don't come across as being a very nice person in the album. I come across as being quite arrogant and conceited and a little bit self-indulgent, and that's fine, because for those few years I was, and I suppose now it's me being congruent and saying I wasn't a good person and I'm trying to be a good person now.
When you are a creative person, as a singer-songwriter as you are, they often say that out of personal angst can come a period of great creativity.
I think as long as it's not too much. I noticed that after a relative passed away, I wrote Thorn in Your Side. I wrote that a few days after her funeral, and I didn't write again for months. I found it too difficult. I did the next song I wrote after that was actually In the Dark, and that was after a breakup of a relationship and me begging that person to take me back. It worked. And for 6 months, and and it didn't work anymore. But you know, there has to be something to write about. It's not, I won't sit down and just pick an object in the room and think I'm going to write about that. There needs to be some sort of story.
I totally understand where you're coming from. Andy, what does the next year hold for Black and White Boy?
I've already started demoing the second album, so I'm hoping to go into the studio to do the second album in maybe late February, early March. But again, that all depends on funding and whatnot. I'm also in the process of buying a house, so it's, you know, not much spare cash going around, sadly. So I would like to do another album. I would like to try and get myself onto a couple of festivals, but I'm going to have to, you know, really.
I can see your style of music going down well at the festivals.
Yeah, I think if, you know, if I landed festival slots, then I would quickly assemble the band to play it in that format. I don't think me on my own would really cut it. But I think that's the beauty of Black and White Boy, in that it can kind of take whatever shape I want it to take.
It can be just you, or it can be you in a band.
And it's been different formats. It's been an acoustic 3-piece before with a violinist and a bassist, and that was lovely. And then it moved on to being more of a, you know, 3-piece indie band, and then it changed again, and it continues to evolve and develop, and I like that side of it. And it's not like it's me that's pulling the strings on that. It just kind of happens. People sometimes have to disappear. My old violinist had to move back to Spain, and so things had to change, and it was forced to develop. And I could have just thrown in the towel and just said, I'll just be a acoustic singer-songwriter, but I wanted it to sound a bit more in depth.
When you listen to the album, you can see how it works both ways, Andy. It works acoustically and it works as a band.
Yeah, and I think the songs transfer.
Definitely.
I think that, you know, because they were written in that way. All the songs were written in acoustic format, and then with an idea of how they're going to sound, you know, played in a band format. So that was, you know, they do transfer very well. But I think that acoustic rock music, if that's how you want to define the album, I don't know how.
I don't know.
I don't know how I'd define it, but, you know,
I define it as a good singer-songwriter album.
Yeah, I mean, it was based on Love Is Hell by Ryan Adams, which is a singer-songwriter album but with lots going on. So but it gives me that opportunity to play the songs in whatever way I want.
Andy, song number 3, what have you got for us?
I'll play In the Dark. This is a song that I do enjoy playing live. I like to start off with it, actually, just the very typical singer-songwriter song of, you know, you made a mistake with a girl and you're begging them to take you back.
We've all been there, Andy. So we have.
We have We have all done that. We have all made that mistake.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the first fool to have done it. So yeah, this is called In the Dark.
Yeah, take it away. Great version, Andy. In the Dark.
Thanks very much.
It's fun. That's the album closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the song you say you sometimes start with.
I usually start gigs with that song. Yeah, I think often I played it sort of the same pace that I play it in the album in that version, but I often slow it right down and play the guitar quite lightly and just kind of focus on the vocals.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those songs that gives me a bit of an opportunity to kind of stretch my voice a little bit, which is one of the reasons why I like to play it first. It actually gives me a chance to
warm up the vocal cords.
Absolutely.
Andy, the album is called Fragile, Black and White Boy. How can people get the album?
The album is available from a few places. Bandcamp is where we are at the minute, so that's blackandwhiteboy.bandcamp.com, and you'll find the album there. You can also get it on the Black and White Boy website, which is blackandwhiteboy.net, and it's also available on the record label website, which is acrerecords.com.
I find it amazing when I went on to the Bandcamp site and it said album to buy, and you've got a price and you say you can pay more if you want.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to say I did. I'm not going to tell the listeners what I paid for it, but do you know something? If I spend a better what I spent on that, I'll be happy. If I can get a better product.
Well, I'm glad you like
what I paid for it.
I think, you know, I can't take all the credit for the album because there were so many contributors on it. There's too many for me to list here without missing someone out and feeling really bad about it later on. But you know, so many people contributed to it and donated their time free.
Yeah,
you know, it's completely free, but on the promise of a couple of beers, which I've still yet to get them. But I will.
I love it. The currency of the musician.
Absolutely. A few beers. Amazing what you can get someone to do for a few beers and music.
So, Andy, you're playing Pivo Saturday night.
Saturday night, Pivo, supporting Josh Harty, who's an Americana touring act all the way over from the States, and along with Matt Scott and A Letter to My Lover. It's £6. And doors are 8 p.m, I believe.
But look at all the music you're going to get for that £6.
For quality, you know, acoustic, Americana, country, folk acts.
Yep.
So if that's your bag, then
head along to Pivo on Saturday night. Andy, thank you very much for coming in to Irvine Beat FM, and love the session. You can see there we have our friend Peter is videoing the session.
Yeah, I'm glad I did my hair before I filmed it.
That will be up online sometime soon, and you'll get the link to it and everything. So you will. Andy, thank you very much for coming down.
Pleasure.
All the best, bud.
Irvine Beat FM.